Climate change adaptation and development strategy. Climate change adaptation has been gaining global attention. At present, we are still struggling to find solutions to stop global warming. Our society still relies on petroleum and fossil fuels as their primary source of energy and continue to emit greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. The accumulation of these gases in the atmosphere is a leading cause of the Earth's rising temperature, and this global warming is leading towards various aspects of climate change. Climate change doesn't only mean higher temperatures. It also includes shifts in seasons, changes in the distribution and amount of rainfall, maximum and minimum temperatures in each period, increased fluctuation in weather conditions, etc. Climate change may occur in several aspects and forms. The changes could be in terms of space, time, magnitude, or frequency, all of which are uncertain. Therefore, we should prepare adaptation strategies in order to reduce the risks from various plausible forms of climate change, which may occur in the future. Before we move on to climate change adaptation, we should first understand climate. The word climate means a general pattern of weather conditions in a particular area, based on several decades of observation. Even though the weather may naturally vary from year to year, when observed over an extended period of time, we can determine the patterns in that region. Climate is different from weather. Weather means the state of the atmosphere at a specific place and time. Now that we have learnt the terminology, let's move on to climate change. Climate change is defined as the difference in climate character during two intervals. For example, various studies on climate trends in Thailand indicate that in the future, the temperature on the hottest day of the year will increase significantly. Warmer regions will get even hotter. The overall average temperature will increase slightly for both daytime and nighttime. Summertime will be prolonged, while wintertime will be shorter. Annual precipitation will increase, but the duration of rainy season will be more or less the same. This may lead to an increase in flash floods or severe floods during the wet season. Start and end dates of seasons may shift. Severe drought may occur more frequently during the dry season as the hot period extends and gets hotter. Fluctuations between seasons and also year-to-year variation will see greater amplitude. We can now observe some of the changes which are expected to become more substantial over the next 20 to 30 years. These changes may expose societies and sectors to unprecedented risks. Appropriate adaptation plans and measures must therefore be implemented in order to reduce the risks incurred from climate change in the future. When we talk about climate change adaptation, we should first understand the aspects and context of adaptation. What are we adapting to? We are adapting to risks from the changing climate, such as prolonged aridity and more frequent or more severe flooding. We also have to consider the socioeconomic changes that will also affect society and livelihoods in the long run. For example, changes in infrastructure, expansion of urban areas, or market conditions of agricultural products. Why do we adapt? Because the risks that societies are currently experiencing are about to change. We need to prepare in order to better cope with the future changes. How do we adapt? Adaptation can begin by determining strategies that would enable communities to manage the risks. Where do we adapt? Each area has a different risk profile, defined by the geographic, economical, and social context within that area. Stakeholders need to understand the risks of each sector and area before they begin planning. When do we adapt? Start now by expanding the vision further into the future. Who needs to adapt? This may vary depending on the point of view. It may be classified by sectors such as agriculture and tourism, by areas such as urban, rural, watershed, and coastal zone, or by communities with different livelihoods, etc. The main objective of climate change adaptation is to lead society to become a climate-resilient society that can cope with risks in the future, ensuring that the society will be able to live sustainably in the long term. It also aims to increase the robustness of current plans and policies so that they are still applicable and achievable despite the ever-changing social context and climate. Therefore, climate change adaptation should be incorporated into the development plan. However, policymakers should not focus only on the impacts of climate change, but also incorporate present and long-term goals under future conditions into the planning. For example, at present, some areas have adjusted their crop calendar from wet season farming, which can face frequent flooding, to dry season farming by sourcing water from the river. But in the future, dry season may become drier and more prolonged, which may cause water shortages for agricultural and household consumption. In such cases, if we plan based only on the present circumstances, without thinking about the future, the plans or the projects that we have invested in will not be applicable in the long term. Money, time, and opportunity will be completely lost in the investment. Therefore, if we want our climate change adaptation plan to yield benefits in the present and help us achieve our goals in the future, we must consider plausible changes in future socioeconomics and climate uncertainties when incorporating present and future goals into the plan. As in the aforementioned case, if the plan has not been laid out carefully, even though a particularly wet period in the rainy season may increase the risk of flood, we can still benefit from this change by expanding the size of the reservoir to increase water storage capacity. This way, we can store the rainwater during the wet season and use it for agricultural activities in the dry season. This is one example of an effective adaptation strategy. Now we see that adaptation planning requires the consideration of numerous variables and factors. It is challenging to develop such a systemic stream of thoughts. Therefore, to help organize such thoughts methodically and ensure inclusiveness, we propose the use of a framework to assist the adaptation planning process. The framework takes both climate and socioeconomic changes into consideration, guaranteeing the plan will be sustainable, suitable, and benefit the society in the present and the long run. This is one of the climate change adaptation frameworks. Before we come up with an adaptation strategy, we should first look at the society's risks. Climate risks may vary depending on the context of each community or sector, such as geographical profile, economic situation, and livelihood. In this case, the risks are driven by two main factors. First are the past and present socioeconomic conditions. For example, a decrease in agricultural product prices, expansion of a community, or a change in people's livelihood, etc. Second is the present climate, such as heavy rain in the wet season, severe drought in the dry season. These are some of the factors which affect the risk profile of a community or a sector. The next questions are, has the community or sector been prepared to tackle the risks, and how? How would changing socioeconomic and climate conditions influence the risk profile in the future? And would the current adaptation plan still be applicable? These questions would lead to the formulation of an adaptation strategy that would help us to better manage the risks we are facing at present and potential risks in the future. The adaptation strategy may include 1. An alternative development pathway. 2. A different way to drive development strategy. Or 3. Better and more effective risk management through innovation and new ideas. While planning, the community may adopt one of these strategies or use multiple strategies combined in order to increase its resilience to change in the long run while achieving its goals by reducing the potential risks. Uncertainty is the nature of the long-term future. We must embrace uncertainty into the decision-making process and not as a variable that needs firm resolution before action can be decided.